I think it's sharp at 2:29, and I think we're good to go live now. I can see that folks are trying to walk in and join in at this stage. You've been accustomed to see me doing this, for about the last 10 webinars now. And firstly, as I want to begin, like always, very, very thankful that you've chosen, all the attendees who've chosen to join in to our to another edition of a wonderful webinar. And this time, of course, while I'm going to take you through everything, just while we wait for the clock to hit 2:30, and I think it has, perfect. Right. So, as you all know, my name is Prashant Sharma. Good evening or good afternoon, because it's 2:30. We've usually been connecting at about 4 p.m., but today we're here at 2:30. Very, very thankful for all of you that have chosen to join us. As you continue to build in, I'm just going to do a basic introduction for myself, as I always do. Welcome to another edition of the Step Up webinar series by the Naukri Hiring Suite family. The Naukri Hiring Suite family, as you know, includes brands like IMJobs, Naukri.com, ResDesk, HighRist, and employer branding, and so many other brands. My name is Prashant Sharma. I am a member of the InfoEdge marketing function, and we're super duper happy to have you here on a Wednesday afternoon, right on time. And I can't underestimate the value of you being on time. Really do appreciate that. We sincerely hope that you're staying safe, taking all the necessary precautions in these pandemic times. Our objective through this series is to ensure that we can all learn from the experiences and insights of the industry leaders, and try to together navigate through these times of uncertainty. Especially with regards to HR and recruitment. I think we can all agree that HR and recruitment will have to and has already taken a front seat during this phase as to how we move forward, right? As you already know, we're also streaming live on our Facebook handle. You can, and the links will be shared with you post event as well. Now, it's a great pleasure to have two esteemed panelists here with me. Folks who I've had a wonderful experience reading articles from as well, because we worked together on some wonderful magazine articles and events previously. But before I come to them, just a few things, just a few aspects to keep in mind, as we go forward in this webinar. We started sharp at 2:30, and again, thank you so much for that. And we will be ending at 3:30 p.m. sharp, because I think we must value everyone's time. We were lucky to receive so many questions, and by so many, I think we received a lot of questions that made my job very, very easy, a lot easier as well. While registering, we got the questions, and we have a basic flow and structure in place. That being said, I think we'll be doing some wonderful live polls to involve the audiences, and we'll try our level best, to take some live questions as well, with the availability of time, of course. I think the topic for today is a topic that, if at all, it was taking a backseat previous to the pandemic. It's now been talked about, and it's now become a very important element as well, which is the gig economy, right? We've discussed remote hiring, we've discussed millennials, we've discussed diversity, we've discussed technology adoption, we've discussed campus hiring, lateral hiring, and so much more over the last 7 or 8 or 9 webinars. But today's topic is again, they are a very, very important growing section of our workforce. And we've seen a great focus on this demographic by talent teams across the country in light of the pandemic. What does the future hold now? And I know none of us have the crystal ball, but for our understanding to discuss this, we are joined here by two wonderful panelists. Firstly, ladies first, we have Subhashini Panyam. She's the Country Director, Talent Acquisition, India and Vietnam at Hitachi Vantara, of course, formerly known as Hitachi Consulting. She's a proven leader and an HR professional with rich experience delivering organizational strategic value towards building employee value and partnership value. She's extremely passionate about HR initiatives. I know for a fact that, because we've interacted at events, we've interacted through magazine content, and she's someone who really does truly believe in moving forward and sharing, her best cases, best practices with others. Previously, we've already worked. She's already worked at companies like Broadridge, ADP, and CSE, where she's worked across verticals in the human resources space. Thank you so much, Subhashini, for joining us. And we hope that this event, this webinar, much like our previous collaborations, is equally value add for you as well. Right? Up next, we also have Sukhpreet Swaran Sandhu. He's the head human resources and core team, and a core team member at Spinny, uh, one of India's fastest growing B2C brands. And not only has he over the last 10 years worked at these fast scaling companies, he's also been initially at brands and startups like Jabong, Tolixo, and Denave, covering APAC and EMEA regions across within his last decade or so. Uh, Recognized by Business World as well as one of the top 100 professional leaders in 2018. I'm very, very happy to have Supreet here as well, because through his articles that he has written for one of our magazine, one of our initiatives, I know that he too has great thoughts on and some very valuable insights to share. So we're very, very happy to have both of you here. Again, not to make the panelists feel old at all, but once I combine the experience ranges of both panelists, that would reach close to 3 decades, which is of course older than I am. but irrespective of that, I think we're very, very grateful to the both of them. At this point, I think the audiences know that, and all 99 or 100 of you know, 100 plus of you know that we will be starting it off in a very, very small rapid fire round with both the panelists. And I'm going to start with Subhashini. I think the pandemic has given us a lot of negativity to talk about and discuss with. So why not sort of discuss some of the positives? I want to ask both the panelists, starting with Subhashini, that what is one professional positive and one personal positive that has come your way via the COVID pandemic? Subhashini, you're up first.
Great. Thanks, Prashant. Thanks for the great introduction, and pleasure is mine. Thank you for having us here. And firstly, to all the participants, a very good afternoon, and I'm hoping that all of you are doing safe and continue to be safe during these testing times. So that's a very interesting question, Prashant. So to really pull out, one professional positive and one personal positive. So let me speak more from a professional, learning that I've had in the last few months to, that have gone by. So I think, pre-pandemic or pre-COVID, the only ask or, the top thing on my mind was always, how is my work-life balance? Do I have enough quality time, with kids at home? Am I giving or, giving myself the me time? And, I think I have transitioned from, thinking about work-life balance to actually integrating both my work and life together. So it's moving from work from home to moving to a work-life integration rather. So I can slowly see that the lines have pretty much blurred between work and on the personal front. But yes, that is something that I've really picked up, and I'm actually quite surprised on how did I manage that and how I could not do this before the pandemic really hit us. So I think that's my professional learning. And on the personal front, this pandemic has really given me an open mind. And, there's something called as TBU, which means it stands for true but useless. So, I have been looking at all the information that is available around me, and I have decided that I would only look at bright spots that will help me be more optimistic, help me be more cognizant, about the facts. And I think I'm more appreciative of, our lives better now. And I think that has been my personal, learning in the last 6 to 7 months that has gone by.
Fantastic. I think right off the bat, you've got us off to a great start with the blurring lines between, the professional and personal, like work-life balance, as, we've always called it. I'm sure a lot of so we're up to about 117 already. I think they all will agree. And, that is something that has affected most of us. So Supreet, you're up next. Same question. What are your thoughts on it?
Okay, first and foremost, good afternoon, everybody. And I hope everybody is fine, doing well, all rocking and all smiling. I think that's the only silver lining that we have these days. Very interesting question. And, to answer, I would start off with the personal side first. I think as Suhasini rightly said, the integration of work and life has happened now, ultimately, right? There is no work without life, personal life, and there is no personal life without work anymore these days. So on a personal note, if I look at it, that has actually helped me on the professional side as well, that I have connected back to my life, right? And I think most of us would agree that in the daily hustle, daily ruckus of travel, of work, so much of things that we do, we sometimes lose touch from our roots, from our core, And I've actually gone back to that, right? So you would not believe, I'm a fitness enthusiast, so whatever I could do at home, I do it. So whenever I go out for a walk, sometimes I try and talk to one person that I've not spoken to for ages, right? So it could be my school friend, it could be my school teacher, it could be my college friend, or it could be some employee, or maybe some ex-boss that I'm not in touch with. That has really helped me in terms of channelizing the thoughts. And believe me, this really works out for those people who feel that they don't have anyone to talk to. They're clogged and confined inside a box of a room, seeing same curtains, same walls, same TV. Maybe sometimes FaceTime is good with family, and overdoing it also has its implications. So that way it has helped me. From a professional standpoint, we happen to be one of the organizations in the same sector in our own front to announce permanent work from home. So, for the corporate folks, we would have a hybrid working model in the future. So I think that was one thing that personally I've looked upon. Like most of the people used to look at that, how the productivity factors are going to be, how our KPIs will be meeting, how the deliveries would be happening. All that has taken a 360-degree shift. And I would like to say that this is the real VUCA that all of us are in these days, and we should be fortunate enough to God or to whoever has done this, pushing us to this entire pandemic to actually witness it day in and day out, for making us fortunate enough to undergo this and adapt these changes. And I think I've become more agile first, at a professional level. I'm more adaptive towards changes, quicker towards changes. And of course, working for a fast growing organization, the dynamics keep changing. And I think that has gone parallelly for me so far.
Fantastic. I think talking about, about the agility of the situation and how we've been forced into doing a lot of things that may have actually been in the works, but, lower on priority. I think that's a great point, really valid point. And, that actually gives me the opportunity to perfectly transition into our first section. And, the first section, and before we start that, I think I'm going to come out and ask and involve the audiences at this stage. Since I think, so we've already crossed 125. So all 125 of you, there's an audience poll coming on your screen very, very shortly. I want to ask you, what percentage of your current workforce is currently working from home? And I think this is a question that everyone would have an answer to. I'm hopeful that we'll have a lot of folks answering, about 30 to 40% plus. Because of the current scenarios, most of the people are working from home. But we want to hear you out. We want to understand from you what percentage of your current workforce is currently working from home. Pretty simple options. And I think now we can quickly check out the results. I think it's a pretty simple question. Right. So 57%, 60% of you are saying more than 80%. Right. So I think at this stage, it sort of helps us, to understand from the audience point of view that the audience we have here are largely working from home. And because, the large percentages are working from home, the gig economy conundrum, the conversation is something that is more relevant for you guys, because this has always been one of the key aspects as to why it won't work for an organization, right? Haven't we heard that previously, that, you're all working from home, we do not know where you are, and, hence all of that is tough to clarify. All right, so I'm seeing that the audibility, yes, so I think that's a challenge. So I think the panelists will try to be louder now after this. And my first question, and I'm going to put that to the both of you, is digital technologies have fundamentally changed how people work, right? Do you see the current scenario fundamentally changing the organization structure as well with regards to gig economies and the gig work? And once the aspect has changed, once the structure has changed with regards to the integration of the gig workforce, which roles or which aspects do you see that staying like that even post pandemic or post the situation? I think because I started with Subhashini the last time, I'm going to come to Sukhpreet this time first. Supreet, you're up first, and if you can, you just try to be a little louder so that the audiences can hear us completely.
Sure. I hope I'm loud and clear. I'm able to. I didn't see a challenge as of now. Great. So, Prashant, one thing is here that definitely if you say this will have an impact short term and long term both.
Yeah.
Right. You keep seeing these these articles, these studies, these reports, which are being out by so many research bodies, not only in India, but across the globe. Some people predict 15%, some people predict 17% growth over the couple of years. And with most of the, or maybe some of the roles converting into assignment based, right, is what we trying to target here. Technology will certainly have its forefront taken. See, understand, this is the real digitization, right? This is the real digitization. I would have never seen people being too digital savvy. Look at this platform, right? We would not have been seeing people being so digital savvy these days that it becomes the core and the spine of how you function, right? So yes, if you ask me in a certain manner, if you look at the entire org structure of an organization or a structure of an organization, you would certainly see, other than manager or a senior manager or different kind of, hierarchical designations, you would certainly see some of the roles like advisors, consultants, being replaced by certain roles. Now it is absolutely very, very particular to, the firms or the structure of the company that you work with or the kind of industry that you are in. And it's also to do with a lot of growth mindset to accept, gig economy workers with open hands, right? If you I can give you an example here, right? Look at how Uber, Ola, right, and the other hyperlocal delivery partners, something that I've recently been, quite in touch with and getting a lot of my work done with urban companies of the world. So you have so many people who have already disrupted this entire, entire business, or if I say the entire line of aspect. But yes, when digital, and you look at it, these are all digital platforms, right? Long ago, we've not really thought that, if you see that, if you sit with an Uber driver these days, you see he has an Ola platform as well with him, or maybe he has Meru platform, any other platform with him as well. So it is actually giving, this digitization is giving a lot of platforms to people to utilize their skill sets, maybe with different environment, right? With different structure, above all with different people. Because at the end of the day, it's the world of people. It's a people business, right? Whether you talk about digitization is there / not there, it's all about people at the end of the day. So I think this way it's certainly going to have a a short-term and a long-term impact. And there could be more roles, right? If you talk about, let's say in HR itself, say there could be a lot of compliance experts coming in who can be gig workers for you. You can have your TA specialists these days. Now you see, I open LinkedIn. So the capacity to learn increases, right? And this is just happening because you are digitally savvy, you are tech savvy at the end of the day.
Fantastic. I think, like you shared there, I think one very key element would be the acceptance of different kind of roles into the organization for those that are already there.
Correct.
I completely understand that. So Subhashini, what would you like to add on the same?
Sure. So this will be an extension to what Supreet actually said. So rightly said, I think, today's world has really changed. And I think we will all agree to the fact that, currently we have the world's largest experiment that is going on right now on how would you run the economy while sitting at home. And this means that, the very definition of workforce is changing on a day-to-day basis. So what does it really mean for a gig worker, or how would you best define on how a gig economy would change because of this pandemic or otherwise too? So if you ask me personally, I think that, the overall definition of gig economy or gig workforce is changing. If you look at a scenario which is as of yesterday, you would have your employees, working for you. You would have your contract employees who are working for you, the so-called gig employees in yesterday's definition, working towards a common goal, which is servicing your customer. But today, the world is collaborating so much. You're working with employees, you're working with SMEs, you're working with consultants, you're working with contract employees. You're also working with your competition, because the end goal is obviously to provide for a better solution or a better turnaround for your customer. So in this, scope of things, the gig economy or the gig talent workforce doesn't just limit to one segment of people. So having said that, I think there are multiple things that can happen, and multiple things that could influence the structure of the organization. So, let's look at it from a, not so very good side of it. So what's the current pandemic doing? Organizations are shutting down. People are losing their jobs. People are craving for better health benefits. So what does it mean to gig employees? It means that, probably they're shifting their mindset towards a stable job because they want, a better medical insurance policy to be able to take care if the pandemic continues or if another, virus hits us in a different form. So what it would mean for the organizations is, structurally, they will have to lift and shift and make benefits work for this, sector of people who are working. But on the contrary, if you have to look at, some exciting things that may also happen because of gig workers is, today, like Supreet said, you have the Ubers, Olas, you would have health professionals also, becoming gig professionals by nature. Tomorrow you may also have the C-suite sharing, meaning you would have CEOs who would be shared amongst organizations. That's the biggest structural change that you could possibly think of. So there are many things that would happen, and I think the influence would be to learn from other domains, not just stick to our own domain. Like GPS was once upon a time existing only in, air, in aeroplanes. Today it is moved to our watches, meaning, somebody has shifted it from there, pulled it up from there and put it in our watches. Such a great invention. So I think we will have to look at things which will, enable us not just look at our own industries, but help the gig economy become better and better. And thus, I think many structural changes will happen.
Fantastic. I think one very important element that you spoke about is learning from different industries. And, apart from that, the very, very key aspect of people losing their jobs, people trying to figure out what is the most stable option for them, and medical insurance, things like that. But before we get to that aspect, I have another question that I'll put to the both of you. And if we go to the first step with regards to the gig workforce, with regards to the onboarding, with regards to everything that we do in the initial stages, even if it is instead of relieving someone you've actually been working with previously, and now you want to sort of continue to sort of re-engage with them. Would you say that it's fair, or what have you seen or what have you experienced from an engagement, onboarding or relieving point of view? What do you see changing from the current scenario to what we see future? And so Subhashini, I'm actually going to come to you first this time, and take that, and then Sukhpreet can sort of follow that up as well.
Sure, certainly. I think that would help, because I'd like to, go back to the point that I mentioned previously. So let me quote a personal example here, and the learning of my personal experience is this. I've stopped believing in engagement. I have stopped believing in employee engagement, but I have shifted my focus to employee experience. The minute you provide for wonderful experience through the digital platform, through your interaction, I think engagement automatically follows. I think it becomes more than engagement. So I think from, when the COVID really started, I'm a little into, doing a bit of evening walks. I try and visit the gyms as and when, whenever I could. That was my routine at one point of time. But after the COVID hit, I was pretty much sitting at home. I was so busy with my day-to-day work, balancing my, integrating my other aspects into it from a household front. And, that's when, one of my gym trainers, he actually reached out to me. And he said that, he would like to start, classes. I said, how would you do that? He said, I'll do it over Zoom. So he's pretty much like the gig employee for me, and I've become his gig customer. So I said, oh, so what's the offering? So he says, you can do the classes if you think you can, if you enjoy the experience, I think we should continue it. I said, okay, let me give it a try. So I think the hidden message is this, he has learned how to use the digital platform. He was probably new. I was surprised to the fact that, how could, physical fitness happen over a video call? How could he even drive that? So I was adjusting to the nuances, trying to up my volume, low my volume, adjust my video, all of that. So I think, through the journey for both of us, I think he's given me an experience which is pretty much, that I'm continuing today. And this is more, again, keeping the, in mind that, we're all gig in a way by definition. So if you can do that in your personal life, you certainly can extend that level of experience to your employees, be it permanent or be it gig or be it any sort of customer that you are interacting on a day-to-day basis. So that, pretty much is my, 2 cents that, I would rather want to provide for a great experience, and engagement would follow after that.
Fantastic. I think from the point of view of I think what you just shared there is why we're doing these webinars, so that we have personal experiences to sort of discuss some very, very contextualized examples. Really appreciate you sharing that. Thank you so much. And Supreet, I'm going to come to you next. Again, with regards to the entire cycle of a gig. If I'm saying a gig employee, the entire life cycle, how would you see a change in a focus on different aspects of it, or what would you think would be the best way to sort of navigate that?
I think the first thing here is to change the way we think, right? As Suhasini cited, that it is important for you to see that even a contractual workforce, we do have a contractual workforce in our current firm as well. And like most of the other participants, I'm sure they would also have them or in some form. The day we change the day we stop looking at and differentiating them between the permanent workforce and a gig / a contractual / a consultant / an advisor, I think your majority of the problem is sorted here, right? I, as an organization, I have to extend. There are certain benefits, of course, they can't get. We can talk about it later for sure. But there are certain experiences, there are certain things they should also parallelly get, because you never know that temp / gig employee who's contributing to your business for about 3 months may give you, let's say, a 3x growth in future. He may lay down the foundation for you. And so much so that as we've been seeing these days, those gig economy workers or gig workers may become your permanent employees by the definition, right? So from an engagement perspective, from an onboarding, et cetera, the processes that you spoke about, Prashant, I think there should not be any differentiation. The day you say that I have a different onboarding plan for you, or the day I say that you'll be onboarded separately, you'll have something separate, you'll have something separate. Yes, I understand that. Yes, benefits are different, statutory norms are different, contracts are different, binding agreements are different. But at the end of the day, they are actually fueling your business, right? They're fueling your processes. They are fueling your business performance, or maybe sometimes culture performance as well, right? So that's the first thing I would actually look at. And I think most of us should go back and look at, I'm sure that most of us hire day in and day out. If I see a CV in front of me, that's a traditional hiring manager approach these days. If I see a CV, I see that, oh, he was a consultant. He has a career break. He has done this. He has done that. I will be so presumptive and intuitive in interviewing this person. If I don't accept such papers at the first go, how do I can actually anticipate to ensure, on how do I actually give a push to myself that I come out of my shell and say that, an employee by definition is an employee for me, no matter you are a permanent or a gig worker or a contractual workforce, or maybe any other support staff for us. And if the day I change it, the day I change the way I think half of my battle is won. My 50% of work is done. Rest 50% is with how I want to ensure that day in and day out, they understand the cultural nuances. Yes, for a gig worker, he may have a definite period to work with us, maybe 90 days, 180 days, so on and so forth. We won't have time to help them assimilate for 6 days, 6 days, 5 days, 10-day program. We need to first be very thoughtful in picking up how agile and quick these guys are in learning, right? So the agility checks are important. Second is that once you've done your bit, they are onboarded. They need to have something handy, maybe something digitized platform wherein they can go ahead and start seeing things on a platform. But at the same time, only artificial intelligence doesn't work. You need natural intelligence around it. And that natural intelligence comes from the HR professionals, comes from your business guys. Business has to wear HR hat. HR has to wear business hat. That's how you continue to work and make an organization successful, whether with gig workforce or non-gig workforce for that matter.
Right. So I think what you're talking about is trying to get some kind of a symmetry between your existing normal usual workforce and the gig workforce, trying to sort of, I'm sure we know that there are certain restrictions with regards to what you can do for them with regards to their times and projects, but wherever possible, you're saying there should be complete symmetry, right?
Yeah. So it's also to do with, I would say an entire inclusion. I'm not talking about inclusion when we just confine it to gender or maybe other orientations. I'm referring to an inclusion, because if you are left out, if you are an outlier, just by the definition of it, which is being lived across, because if I start making you an outlier, entire world will make you an outlier in the organization's ecosystem. So why to do that step for that matter, right?
Absolutely. completely agree with you there. And I think while we've sort of started off the webinar in a lot of aspects that are very, very positive, and these are aspects that sort of do talk about the perks and the best aspects of working with the gig workforce, how you can do that. I think next up, I'm going to involve the audiences on a question that is, again, based on their experiences, right? And the question is just about to come up on your screens very, very shortly. While employing gig workers, have you faced any regulatory hassles? Right. Now, this is a very, very simple question. Yes or no. Yes or no answers. It's something that this comes from a lot of things that we've heard. That we face these challenges, regulatory hassles, regularity hassles, and a lot of these aspects do come up. And these are honestly a lot of these are preconceived notions that we walk into collaborations with as well, right? So I think now we can quickly take a look at the results and what the audiences have to say on this. Yes, so close to 60% of you have had those hassles, right? So again, this is the objective of the poll, is definitely to sort of get this. So now our panelists know that the audiences have faced this hassle, right? And it'll be easier for them to answer the questions that are coming up as well. And I'm going to, put the next question to Subhashini first. Subhashini, this section that we're sort of entering now is all about, building a healthy gig ecosystem. And, how do we do that? What are different elements of it? All right, so I'm hearing that the audio is not clear. All right, so we'll continue to try to be louder. I think I just request the audiences just do try to check your connection as well. Sometimes it just varies from device to device. Yeah, so Subhashini, coming back to the question, how can organizations mitigate regularity and other risks associated with informal or irregular workers?
Yeah. So to answer that, I think firstly we need to understand that gig market is a free market, meaning today there is no existing framework, in terms of regulations or things to do for this section of workforce, because I don't think the government has really invested quite a bit in it. But we're also seeing that the local hypermarkets like Uber, Ola, Urban Club, all of them, are trying to design something which will actually help all of the gig workers to fit into the scheme of things today. Applying that to IT, or to, any other corporation, which is a multinational organization, I would say, I think there are two broad areas that I could possibly think of at the moment. The number one is more from a fair pay and benefits. Are we doing that? Do we have, a body of work which is there, which typically talks about optimizing the benefits and the pay between all sorts of workers that the organization has inside. The second thing is more in terms of the contracts, the documents that we are getting into. All the contracts are very precarious in nature today, very open-ended. So we don't really have a legal gig sort of a body that really exists with us. So I think these are some of the upcoming things that would happen in the near future. I think it is already in the making, but these are things that everybody has to think about: statutory benefits, taxation, how do you pay them? Is the legal contract that we have signed between them and us as an organization fair enough? Do we see any open ends or loose ends? I think these are all the regulatory issues. Personally, this is all that I've experienced in my experience when we were trying to hire or engage a gig worker with us. And I think that's where I'd like to.
If I was to just sort of extend that question a little bit to you, and if I was to ask you again, when you talk about the contractual aspect, do you agree that currently there is a little bit of ambiguity in within it? Like as you said, it's open-ended. So is the open-ended aspect something that we definitely need to stop? And should we put measurables and absolute objectives on each aspect of the contracts now moving forward?
Okay, I wouldn't say that, it is ambiguous. I would rather say that it is rather we don't know our direction yet on it. If you're really clear and there is a mixed contract, it's ambiguous, but I would rather say that the direction that we want to head in, because of too much of mix of workforce, and it is possibly also because of VUCA conditions and people wanting and having their own terms and conditions. Like I said, it is a free market, and why would I choose to become a gig employee is because I would like to work in the time zone that I would like to work. I would like to be paid X dollars. I would like to have X benefits with me. I would also come back and negotiate with you. In fact, we had a gig employee who said that, I'd like to negotiate my compensation in lieu of a benefit, meaning, you can reduce my compensation, but give me something else because this is a benefit of Hitachi that I really like. So this is very personalized, and, painting it with a broader brush and saying that this is something that would apply to all of you really is becoming difficult. And I think that is a challenge that we are facing. So I think it is up to the organization to discuss, decide, and brainstorm. Today, these are the X benefits that I have, and for my full-time employee, I would like to really have something very common for a gig employee. Can you do that? Instead of reducing cost, would I like to balance my cost there? And I think that's the thinking that most of the organizations are going through right now, and that's where the regulatory and legal issues also pop up, because gigs are trying to make it more personal to themselves.
Absolutely. I think thank you for clarifying that as well. I think thank you for sharing that. Supreet, I'm going to come to you next, and my question this time is going to be a situation. I am a completely new novice at the gig economy and how it works, right? And my question to you is very, very simple, and it's an extension to what Subhashini was talking about. I'm going to sort of narrow it down to compensation structure, because at the end of the day, this is what a lot of conversation is, almost always about, right? So firstly, if I was to ask you, how is the compensation structure different for a permanent worker and a gig economy worker? And, within your experience, within your recent years, where have you seen the most improvement? And, where do you see scope for improvement? If you could just sort of share your thoughts on that aspect.
Okay, lovely. So I think from a statutory perspective, there is a difference, right? We all know there is a huge difference, right? In terms of taxation, there is a difference in terms of, the benefits that are offered as a part of the compensation. That's anyway different. But if I look at from a total earning capacity of a gig employee, he has more scope than most of us here, right? Because he's not, he's not bound to work with the firm or bound to work in a region, bound to receive funds or maybe commercials in certain currencies, right? Or in certain forms for that matter. So I think the total earning capacity for one gig employee, when you talk about his or her compensation, is maybe higher than most of us that we would be earning at our current stages. But yes, where things that I see, can certainly have some improvement. I was watching this a few months ago when the government decided to fuel in about like a 20,000 lakh. I don't know how much of amount they fueled it to, compensate out of the GDP some percentage. The finance minister spoke about something called, we also have a provision for gig employees, but unfortunately, I don't know how many of you have seen that happening at the ground level. So that's a separate conversation altogether. So the government did speak about it, right? But when you look at, if your foundation for, if your entire foundation to give a platform to a gig employee is fragmented, right? Something which can't be challenged anywhere, which is not, abided by legalities, right? Which is not abided anywhere. So the monopoly for the organization increases, and the safeguarding of an employee that he feels. So any gig worker would want certain safeguards, financial safeguards, right? Maybe let's say, health and wellness related safeguards, and so on and so forth. So I think what I feel personally, if you ask me, in my experience, yes, people have come back to us asking for a better comp per se, right? But when we look at their earning capacity, and the taxation on this is absolutely very flat, right? On a taxation perspective, it's a very flat percentage they have to get it deducted, and everything is there at the end of the day. What I feel a major problem here is that the amount of savings they're not able to make, right? I would rather look at, maybe I may be over optimistic here, maybe I should try and stop my thoughts, but I think I should let them flow right at this stage, is that government should have central regularities and central governance model for gig workforce. Now, at one point in time, you talk about that I'm fueling this much of amount, right? Which can be maybe 3 times of one company's entire annual payroll, right? Or maybe more than that. And at the same time, you don't have a foundation, You don't have a framework that can support. So these are two fragmented approaches. For me, if a government comes back and says that, a gig employee has to register himself somewhere, right? Maybe to get some kind of a license to become a gig employee, which can be just a basic KYC implementation. Does he have basic things? Is he actually an employee? That saves on a costing. It may come up with as free of cost portal on the government. They should come back with something like this, right? Second is that government should give them a safeguarding that yes, X amount of earning that you earn in an entire year, this X percentage you must go and maybe throw it into the savings, whatever it's a PF or any other fund that you design for these people. In certain ways, you have an option to do for your own PF that you can actually submit it, right? Third part here, I really want to focus here is about the benefits, as Subhashini also spoke about these days, which is the health and wellness benefits, right? So I would rather suggest the organization, along with offering compensation, they must go ahead and give them at least maybe 50% of the comp that they are earning at an annual level, maybe prorated or maybe some sort of formula used to offer them some sort of health and benefit support, maybe an insurance policy. And believe me, the contractual workforce that we have in an organization, we have not differentiated. A philosophy that we follow in a company is it will be all for all or for none. So that's as simple as that. So we do have some contractual workforce, and we have extended these, accidental insurance policies, maybe health insurance policies, which is sponsored by the organization. Because at the end of the day, if something happens to them, we are responsible because there is a contract that is, that abides. And again, as Suhasini said, there could be loopholes in the contract. There could be challenges in the contract because yes, these are created by organizations, created for organizations most of the time. Only the 10%, 20% is towards the side of the employee or the gig worker. 80% is towards the company. I think that kind of implementation checks must be done by the government and the regulatory bodies to ensure that this entire thing, when you predict at a point in time that yes, 17% in rate we see as growth, but at the same time I have nothing yet currently that I can go and search about and find some, maybe there are a few platforms they have created, but unfortunately the impact of those platforms has not been that satisfactory at all. And one thing, all of us, all the participants here, I'm sure most of you would agree, guys, here is the fact that, in future, if I look at myself, I won't mind becoming a gig worker. But if I just think that, okay, how so the economy that at a point in time you're trying to fuel with so many predictions, but with those predictions versus the reality check, there are two across. That's what I feel.
Great. I think another valid point that did come across there is some kind of a KYC format or something to do that, does sort of help both sides, and, it creates a win-win situation for both aspects.
I'm talking from a government perspective, for an example, from a government side. So there has to be central regulatory bodies. The organizations will keep doing things. So this is as per my whims and fancies. I want to design certain things. Tomorrow don't come, right? Your contract is over. Right?
Yeah, because the lack of standardization will actually
absolutely right. So if we're not in US, wherein we have laws that if I'm thrown out, government will pay me, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So understand, government will pay. So there are three different layers of people, right? One is that right at the bottom of the pyramid, the BPLs and the rural ones, or the ones who poorer. I shouldn't say rural ones, the poorer ones, and then you have the top of the guys, and then you have the middle class. So all the plans that you see in the market are majorly meant for those people who are at the bottom of the pyramid. The ones who are at the mid of the pyramid, the middle class or us, people like us, there is nothing really done. So for those big workers, there has to be something. That's what I feel. The day it becomes standardized is the day organizations will start following it as a norm, and fragmentations, open to interpretations, ambiguities, uncertainties will take a backseat forever.
I think the one aspect that you've just sort of spoken about is something that I would have loved to heard in the last question as well, with regards to a crystal ball. And, that's what I was going to come to. In future, what would we like to actually see? I think standardization with regards to some kind of a workforce from a centralized body is something that I think it would help all parties involved. Thank you so much. I think that was some wonderful thoughts and insights there from both of you over the last two questions. I'm going to ask you to be a little crisp and give me, one or two points each on an aspect that is the natural next important element of the ecosystem, culture, right? Now, gig workforce and economy, members of the gig economy will always be at your organization for a project or an assignment or a shorter duration of time, no matter what the compensation or how much. How do you ensure that, or do you even want to spend a lot of time ensuring that they are an important element of your culture, or they speak the same language, they they have that feeling of belongingness, those aspects that you want to always create within your normal workforce. How do you ensure, that they're culturally mapped well to, to your needs and the organization? Or is that something that you would not necessarily prioritize? Subhashini, you can go first.
Yeah, sure. So we've touched upon this point, in our previous thoughts, Prashant. But yes, let me speak about a couple of things that Hitachi does. So this is more of Hitachi experience than anything else. So what we do is, when we interview somebody, there is a specific level of interview which is called as HFIT. So HFIT is nothing but Hitachi fitment. And the discussion is all about mapping a candidate, an external candidate, to the values of the organization through this discussion. Values of the organization is nothing but how you behave in the organization and what is expected out of you as an employee of the organization. And that is what culture is for us. So that is how we do a cultural fitment when we do a discussion. So what we do is, irrespective of whether it is a full-time person or a gig employee, the interview remains the same. This is an investment that we do, is that when somebody steps into the organization, he or she must feel that they belong to the workspace. They should feel that they are working towards a common purpose. And I think these are the two big challenges when you have a gig employee, is that they don't feel connected or they don't understand the purpose. They're just here to provide for services. So we try and address both the factors, and we try and map that. It's like expectations versus expectations. My expectations as an organization versus your expectations as an employee, as a gig employee or a full-time employee. So we bring that alignment there. So that is one thing that we do. And recently what we have done is more from a job security standpoint. There is an initiative which we launched a couple of months back, which is called as 555. So what it means is, every senior leader in the organization, he has to choose 5 people from 5 different business units, irrespective. It doesn't mean that it will be only my team. I have to go across and choose from 5 different units or business units or sub teams, and I have to call them every day for 5 minutes and have a conversation with them, just to understand how are they feeling. Are there any challenges? Is there any support that they would need from the organization? And this 555 mix included everybody in the organization. It did not necessarily limit to just a full-time working employee or a professional, but rather anybody who's working with us and is key for the organization. And so that's the cultural behavior or transparency that we have maintained as an organization. And I think initiatives like this which are again very personal to the organization, a lift and shift may not necessarily work for all, but I think we've seen successes in the way we've operated through this.
I think that's a wonderful initiative that you've spoken about. And while you said lift and shift doesn't work, I think what we can sort of guarantee is that the involvement and the operations of executing something like that aren't unrealistic. I think they are elements that are doable. So I think kudos to you guys for doing something such. It's wonderful to hear about such an innovative thing as well, because I'm sure a gig worker getting a call like that would really help them be involved within the organization. Supreet, what would you like to add, if you have anything quickly to add on that?
So quickly, I think I've spoken about in the past, just a while ago, that it's about total inclusivity, right? It's all about total inclusivity. As Subhashini rightly said, that you're not differentiating when you're speaking to someone. It's checking a well-being at all. For me, it also to do with checking their motivation levels. Because in a cultural setup, in a culturally progressive organization, I must say this way, the motivation levels are very important, right? The moods, right? Especially when you work with gig workforce, Vizari or whatever workforce, let's say, the moods are something very important. No matter how hard we say that we're not moody, we all of us are, right? So that ambiguity is there. That's how we human beings are. So aaj acha hai, kal bura hai. So we keep doing those things, right? So that mood assessment, in terms of how that mood assessment can take up to certain motivation level for these guys, and then how these motivation levels are technically increased. So we use a platform. You started using a platform wherein we foster a culture of peer-to-peer recognition, right? So, which is a big miss in most of the firms, right? It's mostly top down, right? Or maybe in a very formal structure. So we use a platform in our HRMS, and, there are about 15, 16 nice badges like, we are hungry for more work from you, you're a rock star, and so many jazzy terms. And people can go ahead and start recognizing anyone and everyone in the system. It could be for a smallest of a behavior. For an example, in our business, it's operations heavy, supported by tech. So let's say if a car evaluator goes to a customer's house and he's evaluated a car to be picked up, and let's say he's exceptionally performed very well, wherein he's received a great review from a customer, right? And we get to know it from Google or maybe from a marketing team. Anyone in the system can go ahead and start sharing that, kudos, you're a rock star, you received this. The person feels good about it. And I think in this setup, especially with what we are in, what lacks is communication. You have to over communicate, no matter what you say. Like Subhashini said that you have 555, we say that you have to over communicate. And that over communication can be on a platform, can be on a WhatsApp, can be with a bot, right? Can be with a human being. And that really drives out and, speaks volumes about whatever cultural values that exist in the firm, whatever business values they exist in the firm, and how they coexist for everybody.
Great. I think peer-to-peer recognition is another aspect that may have gotten unworked for, the gig economy. I think, thank you for sharing that as well. And, while we've discussed so many things, we're going to just, over the last 10 minutes, we're going to talk about the future. But before that, let's look at another poll that we've got coming up for the attendees. This is our last poll. The poll largely focuses on the future and what you think is coming up. How do you see the future of gig work in India in the coming 5 years? Moderate decrease in gig workers, significant decrease, no change, moderate increase, significant increase. I think I know what I think will be the answer, but I can't wait to see what you guys think as the audience. We've still got about 90% of you here, so we're very, very happy with that. So I think now we can see the results of the poll as well. Right, so 50 to 60% of you do believe that, there'll be a significant increase. And, that brings me to basically the last question of today. And I think we're right on time, and we've got about 5 to 6 minutes to do that as well. And thanks to the panelists, where we usually have best practices saved till the end, we've had best practices through the webinar today. So thankfully that sort of covered a section for me as well. Thank you to the both of you for that. But I'm going to ask you a very simple question, and I'm going to give you 2 to 3 minutes each to talk about it. Very, very simple question. If I need you both to look into your crystal ball and tell me, how do you see the gig economy in India changing? What sectors do you see developing? Just your overall take on this element of the Indian, ecosystem. Subhashini, can you go first, please?
Sure. I think on a lighter note, if I gaze at the crystal ball, it says that there would be no more Monday morning blues, no appraisal fear, because the gig economy has, probably increased multifold by 2025. And maybe I myself, I am a gig worker, and that's what I can see. But yes, if you ask me on what are the changes that may happen, I would I also saw a question in the chat box about how would startups really manage the gig economy. So I'd like to touch upon that, as probably one of the focused areas for 2025. So if you have to look at it, let me classify this into 3 or 4 large areas. So you have professional services that would be done, meaning you would want to hire a large or good number of subject matter experts who would be doing a lot of client impact work. So that is one big change that will happen, which means that people will be hired at a senior level and probably at a mid level, and not really at the bottom of the pyramid. The second is more in terms of large companies which are actually undergoing a transformation journey. Until today, most of them have not been very digital savvy. They've not been very digital in nature. But because of the pandemic that has hit us, everybody overnight has changed to, becoming more digital in nature, which also means that there's a lot of transformation. That's an immediate quick fix that has happened. But it also means that 3 years, 2 years, or 1 year down the line, they will have to transform themselves quite a bit to be able to really be successful in what is happening around them. They have to catch up with everybody. So that's the transformation journey. So you would need a lot of gig workers there, or you need a lot of upskilling and relearning of skills that should happen, which is time consuming. But yeah, gig economy is quickly and easily available. The third is about startups. I think this is the right time for startups to really hire a lot of gig employees, is because startups do not really have a long-term vision. They are probably thinking of short-term goals, and how do you manage costs, how do you manage funds, what's the budget that we have, and so on. So they would want to hire experts who are with them for a shorter period of time, gain success, and then probably move on. So I think these are the three categories, and this is how I see all three categories probably changing in the few years to come.
Again, I think that's again shed some light on some very important aspects with regards to sectors and how startups can actually utilize this to the best of their advantage. I'm going to actually come to Sukhpreet, and the reason why I'd like to also sort of, from a Spinny point of view as well, I think the organization focuses on a principle, which is very, very relatable for a lot of gig economy workers as well. So from your point of view, how do you see, and you've been in that zone where you've seen the startup, you've seen the growth, you've seen the scale, and there are questions about IT, the tech world, how the IT world can, capitalize on it the best. What are your thoughts on it? Would love to know.
So I think I would rather say that let's look upon the question itself, right? Why future in the next 5-6 years? Future is now. I was reading an article this morning that one of the e-commerce giants based out of Bangalore, they've decided to create 70,000 seasonal jobs to support one of their annual initiatives that they run. So that speaks volumes, right? How we look forward to bring homogeneity in the entire system and entire ecosystem. So that's the one part, right? So maybe we have a crystal ball, the tarot cards, or everything handy with us to, just do a predictions. And I think predictions may not be that appropriate by the time we have reached 2020, maybe 21 for that matter, you never know. So future is now. I think when we look at what roles, I'll first talk about from a generalist perspective, and I'll give you a Spinny perspective very quickly. So one thing here is that, as Suhasini said, we will not be surprised to see shared CEOs, and that's going to happen soon. But I think I'm also not surprised to see these days as shared CHROs as well. There are so many consultant CHROs that I know who are consulting in so many companies as consultant CHROs, right? So as we see that it's not going to be confined to the lower belts, the entry level roles, will also have a lot of significant impact on mid and the senior level roles. A lot of cross-functional skill set alignment is very important here. So you need to be absolutely skilled. So there's a gentleman, I think somebody who asked a question here. I think it's as an anonymous attendee, if I'm not wrong. This person is asking, is also about the unskilled labor? Yes, it's also about the unskilled labor as well. Now from here, I'll transition to what we do. So I deal with 3 different set of employees, right? One is somebody who's a blue collar workforce, ITI diploma holder, right? Whose just job is to evaluate and inspect cars and give us the best of the quality. And that's actually the spine of our business. We can't compromise on that. Second is what we have, the corporate strategy kind of roles that we have in the system, any general corporate roles. And finally, I have the technology side of it. So there are 3 different organizations that we have within one organization itself. So with auto sector, if you say, right, or the automobile sector, yes, you can certainly see a lot of boom in, gig economy, especially with respect to when you have the mechanics side of it, right, the design side of it, right. You'll also see a lot of boom in terms of in the events industry as well, right. You will also see a lot of boom in pharma, in research, right, in analytics, because now these things are, these are something very horizontal across the organizations, right. The research is something which will be very horizontal. Yes, it can be specific to one domain, specific to one unit. But what I see that the day we start opening our arms to give opportunities to people who are scouting jobs outside, maybe as consultants, I think the future will be now. As I said, future is supposed to be now, and it is now.
Fantastic. I think that sort of gives me everything that I would have wished to gain out of our wonderful panelists, through this hour. Thank you so much to the both of you for, spending this entire hour with us. I know there are a few questions, but I'm sorry, they've just come in a little bit too late. I'm going to try to send these questions to our panelists as well. You can connect with them directly as well. And, we're very, very happy to see the level of engagement through the hour. Very thankful to all of you, in staying with us through this time. With that, we bring to an end this wonderful hour of insights and experiences. Panelists, attendees, thank you so much for joining us and staying with us through this. To all those signing out, please remember to fill a feedback form as long as you give us feedback, we'll keep coming back bigger and better every single time. We really do appreciate you spending. You basically just had lunch with us on a Wednesday afternoon, so I really do appreciate that. All of you. To the panelists, thank you so much as always. That was so much fun connecting with you. Picking your brains on all of these topics. Once again, in conclusion, I'd just like to say, I hope you, your families, everyone's doing safe, taking all necessary precautions. You have all the support that you need. And we hope all of these things end soon and we're able to get back to our normal lives. Until then, this platform is there to help you out with whatever's happening with regards to recruitment and HR. Thank you, everyone. And I think with that, I'm going to bring everything to a close.
Great.
Great.
Thank you,
Thank
everybody.
you. Thanks,
everybody.
Sukhpreet.